You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 35 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. With me, as always, Jessica Salaji.
Hello.
And a special guest filling in for Matt Lowe, who's under the weather, Jonathan Giles.
I'm a special guest now.
Oh, you're special.
It's fantastic to be here. Jessica, looking lovely as always. Dave, I don't guess you've gotten any worse since the last time I've seen you, so...
Is there worse?
It's good to be back. I'll tell you that. It's good to be back in the seat. I don't quite know, how I'm going to perform tonight because I was only sent the show prep an hour ago and I haven't really had time to review it. Jessica may say, "Well, how's that different than any other show that you've ever been on?" And she would probably be right, but still, I'm mildly prepared and ready to go. Ready to opine.
Well, you've got a leg up on any episode Matt's on.
Well, that is true. That is true. Now, since I'm filling in for Matt tonight, does that mean that I am responsible for the pimping public land and telling everyone how great public lands are?
Only if you want to be made fun of.
Oh, well. I thought that was my role here from the beginning, but if it is not, then I won't do that.
Yeah, you've got to be an anarchist with a little bit of socialist thrown in.
Yeah, well.
Speaking of anarchists, Dave.
Anarchists, quote unquote, are attacking GOP candidates in Minnesota.
Do we feel like these are real anarchists? Like, are they legit anarchists? Or are they just saying that because they're rogue and attacking people? You know how like the media or the people who are attacked will be like, "Oh, it's those rogue, anti-government folks," but really they're just an angry mob that doesn't really have a political affiliation.
Well, I mean, how do you define a real anarchist? The essence of being an anarchist is that you're basically unlicensed and and I think that that they're probably, because they are attacking GOP candidates, I'm willing to give them more of an anarchist label because you just don't see that when you're dealing with if they were attacking the left, then I don't think that they would be considered anarchists. But this woman, State Rep Sarah Anderson, she looks quite disturbed by the shenanigans in this photo in the article.
Well, one of them is quoted saying that he just said he was an anarchist and could do whatever he wants. But I mean, just shouting "I can do whatever I want" doesn't make you an anarchist.
Well, I mean, I think that's the Matt Lowe definition of anarchy.
Well, a true anarchist would be anti-government, not anti-right or anti-left. These guys,
principled anarchists, right?
Right. I mean, I think the media is giving them that name, or they're taking that moniker opposed to being truly a fascist. I mean, a jackbooted thug that's going to attempt to oppress one particular party over the other using violence. Now, the story where this representative gets in her car and attempts to chase him down, not her brightest moment. And I think as I read it, she got punched in the arm. Here in Paulding County, we have been known as the airport people. The county suing itself over the airport we built in the middle of nowhere. It seems that Governor Let's Make a Deal has done just that. He has ostensibly ended the bid to turn our airport commercial and put in a $35 million aviation academy to train aircraft mechanics. The quote in the article is, Deal descended in a state patrol helicopter on Friday morning to announce the 60,000 square foot Chattahoochee Technical College aircraft maintenance training facility. As our expert on Paulding County politics, Jessica, does this allow our little county to heal?
I mean, as long as you have that Facebook group, I don't think the county's ever going to heal.
Which Facebook group is that?
Oh, the one that I'm not in. The one with all the Kathys. Okay? The one with all the Kathys.
Jonathan, you've been close enough to the situation to see what's going on out here, and watch some of the politics. You know, what was your opinion of the airport idea to begin with?
You know, I'm never really a fan of things when they're done in that manner. I believe that if an idea is a good idea, then it'll be picked up by private enterprise, private investors. And the way that the airport deal was done, regardless of my feelings on it, there's a lot of backroom shady dealings with the airport. And I never really got too deeply involved in that. Like I was familiar with the broad brush strokes of it, but the really finer points of this happened on X date and here's the video to prove it, and this happened behind closed doors on this date, and blah, blah, blah. I never really got that involved, but I certainly never liked the idea of having a county government basically propping up a private business. So, on that aspect, I never supported it. On the general idea of commercial airliners flying in and out of Paulding County, I never cared. It never affected me one way or the other.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'm agnostic on the entire thing, mostly because it's not viable as a commercial airport. It is too.
No, it's not.
It's too far in the middle of nowhere. There's one road to get there. It's 278. And for listeners that aren't familiar with Paulding County, I don't make this too Paulding centric. 278 is a 4-lane road that goes through the most congested area of Paulding County, already congested. And then you drive and keep on driving. And then when you see a guy shagging a sheep, you turn left, and that's where the airport is. It was never viable. It was never going to have enough commercial flights to really employ anyone. I used to fly in out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, when I was stationed at Fort Bragg. And the guy who gave you your ticket at the counter was the same guy who put the bags in the plane, then took the ticket back from you to get on the plane, and then ran the tug. So that having a model of a small commercial airport like that doesn't create but a part-time job to do that, and it never was going to bring the promises of economic boom.
Yeah, and that's become a much larger issue to growth in that area, because as everybody that's a longtime listener of this show knows, I am a Douglas County guy. I just kind of helped out with Paulding for a while, but and in Douglas we have I-20 that runs straight through the middle of the county, and it's 20 minutes to Atlanta. And so we have a lot of stuff. We have a lot of film production in Douglas County. And Paulding built that airport. They also built the movie studio. The same basic premise, and it's not going to work because exactly like you said, there's no viable way to get there. And you can't get trucks in and out very easily. And it's the same exact issue that they have with the movies. It's the same issue that they're going to have, trying to bring in major industry as well, industrial parks and things like that. If I were somebody involved in the shipping industry, I'm not going to want to move my headquarters to Paulding County and force all these drivers up 278. It's just a nightmare.
Well, absolutely. It's already a nightmare to get through Hiram at noon when everybody's milling about going to lunch. At 5 o'clock when everybody's going home. It's if they want to turn Charlie Brown into a midway field type airport, that makes sense. It's on 285. It's right off of 20. There's several ways to get there, and it's within a short bus ride to transfer passengers. Or if they wanted to go turn the Gwinnett Airport in Lawrenceville and take that commercial, that makes some sense. It's on the other side of town. It has 316, has viable roads to get to it. It's not 20 miles on a 4-lane country road heading out towards Rockmart. And I know it's
and speaking of Charlie Brown, I'll just throw this out there. I'm very surprised that FedEx or UPS has not snapped that up with its sitting right there at the end of Fulton Industrial. I'm very surprised that one of those two companies hasn't swiped up Charlie Brown and turned it into a FedEx hub. But
it'd be a good place for it. I mean, other than the traffic sucks right there, but it does everywhere in Atlanta.
Yeah,
and there may be an aviation expert that will tell us we're both idiots. Like, well, it only has this many linear feet. You can't do that because of this. Whatever reason that is. But Charlie Brown certainly seems to be a much more viable spot for commerce and everything else. And to your point on the movie theater, our movie production out here, we don't have a studio. We have a big building with some small buildings around it. That's not a studio. Going down to Fayetteville, that's a studio.
Have you ever actually been inside there?
Only to have lunch at the little elementary school the studio bought.
And and the other thing is you probably it's not really your field. I do a good bit of video production type work professionally now, and I can tell you that Paulding studio, the only thing that it is any good for is if I wanted to shoot a short commercial. There's not enough of anything there for me to do like a large feature film, anything like that. I could do a nice little infomercial for, Ready Knives or something like that there. Set up a little studio audience, have a lady stand up in the back. Will this thing cut a can? Something like that. But that's about the extent of the usefulness of the Paulding movie studio.
There's no place to stay. I mean, the closest. I'm a snob. If the listeners haven't picked up on that, our idea of camping is a Holiday Inn without a bar. There's no decent place to stay when you get this far out. I mean, the Marietta Country Club is okay, but that's 45 minutes without traffic away. You're going to tell Jennifer Aniston, hey, why don't you go check into the Microtel? And they have filmed a couple things out here. Logistically, Field of Dreams is a work of fiction, not an economic economic model to follow. If you build it, they will come, because they have not.
All right, so that's 15.
Yeah, that's
crapped on Paulding County enough tonight?
That's enough Paulding centric stuff out here.
Looks like Joe Arpaio is suing the New York Times.
Yeah, this is going to be. There was an opinion piece called, "Well, at least Sheriff Joe isn't going to Congress. Arpaio's loss in Arizona's Senate Republican primary is a fitting end to the public life of a truly sadistic man." By was it Michelle Cottle?
Michelle Cottle, yes.
You know,
And looks like Arpaio feels that the statement "sadistic man" is worth $147.5 million.
Yeah, I thought that was a little outrageous for, including attorney's fees. Like, that's not going to cover your attorney's fees, bro. Like, your political career wasn't worth that much.
or was it? How much was he planning on taking out of the people? But Jessica, is this a First Amendment issue? It is a
First Amendment issue, yeah. And they were clear about it, that it was an opinion. And there's been a lot of rulings in the past about using adjectives and how those adjectives are interpreted as opinion, not fact. I mean, yeah, they said truly before they used the word sadistic, but I mean, you can pretty much. If they explicitly say it's an opinion and you still can't surmise that it's an opinion and they're not trying to pass it off as factually based, opinions of the world, then the problem is we should be suing you because you're stupid.
Well, Evel Knievel 13 years ago lost a similar suit where I believe the name of the article was "Evel Knievel proves that you're never too old to be a pimp." Of course, Jonathan, somebody of Knievel's age has a much different idea of what a pimp is. But, it came down and it went to court. This is case law now that he lost the case. So I don't know where Arpaio and his attorney think that they're going to go from here.
Well, I'd also like to know why they're singling out the Times, because, he was staunchly criticized for a very long time for his immigration policies, aligning with Trump, then Trump pardoning him. I mean, he's been in the spotlight for a long time. This isn't the first time that someone said something about him, and I would imagine that, some of the alternative sources and the left-wing people have called him much worse, so why this? Why now? Why was this the final straw? And is it because the Times tends to have more money and carry more insurance for things like this? Or, I mean, what is it? Because we know there's more to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can't call somebody a jerk in an op-ed, where can you do it? And I hate taking the Times side. I really do.
Well, they make it hard, but if this is successful, which is one of the concerns with appointments of judges, we could see a move towards judges who align with the way that President Trump thinks in redoing libel and slander and all of that. But if the courts rule in favor of Arpaio, there's going to be a lot of journalists who maybe censor themselves a little, or maybe all collectively just team up to go to FEMA camp together. I'm not sure, but it would change the media dramatically, because, like I said, it's not like this was squeezed into some statistical, dissertation. This was an opinion piece, and an opinion piece is no different than what we all put on Facebook or Twitter or anything else. So,
and that was my next point, Jonathan, is if this goes to journalists, and I hate slippery slope arguments, but when would it apply to Twitter, Facebook, the average person being sued for insulting a public figure?
Yeah, I mean, you're right there.
I'd be in court all the time if that's what was happening.
Aren't you already?
Just observing. Just observing.
This is a great time to remind everyone that these are our views and not those of All on Georgia or any sane, rational person. Getting into the meat of the program, this is a interesting story. In South Fulton, solicitor LaDawn Jones started her vote registration incentive, where she was offering $50 off fines levied against individuals if they would go register and vote.
What do we think about this? I've made my opinion very clear. What do we think about this?
Well, you know, there's several facets to that. I would say, to begin with, you know, I'm not happy with this solely based on the fact that if you need to be incentivized to vote, then you don't need to be voting. You know, honestly, I wish people would stop posting the photos of themselves with the I voted stickers on Facebook, because all you're doing is reminding people who didn't even know that they should go vote that, you know, they can go vote. And so we just end up, you know, diluting the pool of voters with, you know, people that aren't landowners and women and all sorts of other groups that aren't, you know, shouldn't be voting. Did I do a good Matt impression there?
You did. You did.
Was that believable?
And that really reminds me of when Jimmy Kimmel was funny. He did a Man Show episode getting women to sign a petition to end women's suffrage.
Do you think that what she did was illegal?
Well, allow me to read the law, and I won't step on you again, Jonathan. I'm sorry. Any person who gives or receives, offers to give or receive, or participates in the giving or receiving of money or gifts for the purpose of registering as a voter, voting, or voting for a particular candidate in any primary or election shall be guilty of a felony. And that is federal law. And it would only applies if there are federal candidates on the ballot. Which, as I recall, for most, there are.
Of course. There are in Fulton, there are federal, because the thing about what she did was, you know, there could easily be motorists that aren't just City of South Fulton, they were there, or misdemeanors or whatever, because they were passing through and got a ticket, or, I mean, they could be from anywhere, and so she opened the door for multiple jurisdictions, in my personal opinion. And I wrote a piece on Georgia Poll, and my editor asked that I please let her know ahead of time that I was going to be writing the article, so I did. And she responded by letting me know that no money was offered, and, you know, that's her skirt around the law. But if by Georgia code, you know, your citation is supposed to be $200 and the city offers you $150, that's $50 in your pocket. I don't really understand how it's not monetary, but...
Well, you know, playing devil's advocate here, you know, really, there's guidelines, but for very few things in the law, and this may be what gets her off of this if she does get off, is there's very few misdemeanor citations in law that actually have like a legally set amount. So, you know, that may be the skirt around that it's, you know, nothing of value, is because, I mean, the honest truth is, you know, I typically tend to deal with solicitors whenever I get traffic citations, and, you know, most of the time just by calling them up and asking for it, you know, I can get, you know, 10 mile per hour knocked off, and
but the difference,
$100 off.
The difference is that federal law, the law that Dave read is OCGA. If the federal law says that no money has to be offered, like it's just the idea of it that is enough for a commission of a felony at the federal level. And even though, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that would kind of be out the door under the federal prescription of it.
Well, yeah. And I'm sorry, you're right. That was official code of Georgia. The thing is, going into a solicitor and saying, look, we're going to save everybody money. You knocked 10 miles an hour off. I won't waste the court's time. You get to clear a file off your desk. That's what happens with plea bargaining every day. But to offer a straight quid pro quo to get you to go and register and go and vote, man, that if she's not guilty, she sure feels like it. I mean, it has that icky feel to it.
Well, you bring up a good point, too, because if you read a lot of the legal opinions, they say, had she opened it up to everyone and said, hey, in honor of the final day to register to vote, we're offering, everyone gets this. Like, you're celebrating the day. But as soon as you ask people to prove anything, that's when you get yourself in trouble.
Now, another slightly unrelated question that's mostly just because I haven't done the research is she an elected solicitor in South Florida?
I doubt it. I believe she's appointed. Most municipal.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's a municipal. That's not a county.
Now, she does know enough to know better. I believe she was a state rep, which doesn't mean she knows anything. But a practicing attorney, you think would have a grasp of the law, or maybe she thinks she's smarter than everybody else and she found her loophole.
And she's a political coach it's called Politicoach. She has a company that she coaches political candidates through their process. I have a feeling that this is something that may come up. Like, I doubt that she can't plead negligence on this. Now, I am a huge in favor of, talking about things that matter. And one of the commenters on this article said, oh, the author needs to calm down. There are a lot worse things happening in America. But it's not really the offense for me. It's that if you or I did it, we would be punished. And because she's in a position of power, she probably won't. And that's what's so frustrating for me.
Well, I don't think this is a really big deal. The writer just kind of sensationalized this.
Sure.
In order to get clicks.
Right. Sell ads, get clicks. Yeah. Yes, because I've heard how much fun it is just making enemies day after day.
And that's a reference to last week when our guest mentioned that without reading the byline on one of the stories we mentioned.
That was really funny. That was really funny. Wow. I thought I handled it really well.
You did. I mean, what would be hilarious is to release one of our podcasts with the conversation stream that goes along with it.
That would get me fired.
It'd be the last day we did a podcast.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, this kind of, not to steal your thunder, Dave, as the host, but, I mean, the whole reason that this is important is I feel like it, if we allow this, where do we draw the line for vote buying? At what point is money, not... I'm torn. At some point, people are going to do what they want to do. They're going to find a way to pay for votes if they want to pay for votes. If they want to follow the law, they'll follow the law. But, I mean, where do we draw the line of having some ethics and legality in terms of protecting the sacred aspect of our elections?
I would start with not offering government money for it. Because that's what she was doing, is offering to reduce the fines that were going to go into Fulton County's budget in order to buy votes.
Sure. And a lot of people were outraged at the fact that it was the city of South Fulton, and they were speculating as to who might be benefiting. But to me, that's not as relevant as what actually happened, I guess.
Oh, yeah, the what is definitely more important than the who.
Right.
Right.
And to your point, Jonathan, and pulling Matt's weight for him, low voter turnout is not bad. An educated electorate is more important than a high turnout. So if you get a bunch of people who are flipping coins, especially with the amendments in the way they were written, and if you got somebody who's just flipping a coin going, I don't know, yes, or whatever, And I think we've said it here before. It's okay not to vote in a race that you don't know anything about. But I would rather someone bow out than to go and vote and have no idea of what the issues are, or vote based on how many roadsides they see.
Right, and that was kind of, behind all the nonsense, that was kind of the seriousness of my point, is that, look, we're already in early voting season right now. If you don't know that we're right now in the early voting time period and that the election is a couple weeks away, then I don't see how you could not know that, but know enough about the candidates to make an informed choice. All you're going to do is go in there and vote down ballot one way or the other,
Well, the meme on Facebook told me that Stacey Abrams is the devil incarnate, and Brian Kemp is purposely removing people from the rolls.
Makes sense.
And a little bit about my background is, when I was in the Army, I did psychological operations. And back in the Stone Ages, when I was doing that, you had to actually work to change people's minds and change their behaviors. Apparently now, as long as you get enough likes on a meme, you can put out whatever nonsense you want because people believe it.
So wait, when you say psychological, and you're doing all this work to change people's minds, I'm assuming this is before the days of waterboarding.
Oh no, waterboarding existed. That's not. We were a force multiplier. We could take a small element out, make them seem like a really big element. World War II, they used inflatable tanks. As a friend of mine says, Dave used to blow up tanks. No, not with dynamite, with like a bike pump.
Nice.
Yeah, but part of the training was, and I every once in a while, I'll pick something up that comes across Facebook and just to play with it. It's called a SCAME worksheet, which is source, content, audience, media, and effect. And you kind of analyze a piece of enemy propaganda that way, in that framework, to kind of see what were they going after. And it's stupid stuff that I've pointed out, which is misquoting. This guy started Led Zeppelin, and it's a picture of Getty from Rush, and then started it'd be completely wrong, and see how many people you can get to share it. Take a picture of my dog. If she doesn't get enough likes, she's gonna die. It is the American electorate in gross has dumbed itself down to. We used to have skepticism in this country. Like, you'd read something and your immediate thought would be BS. And let me go figure that out. And yes, and back when I was a kid, you went to the encyclopedia and pulled it out and looked something up. It's unbelievable, the stuff that gets shared, and passed along. And it's even like people that I like, and I'll type something out and I'll delete it because I like that person. But I'll type something completely just awful, chastising them for sharing that, then just delete it, because it at a certain point it becomes just fruitless.
Yeah, I was unfriended recently by a guy I've been friends with for quite a while, because he posted some nonsense. It wasn't even some nonsense that I necessarily disagreed with. It was not true. It was false, and I called him out on it, and he got all upset about it, and he unfriended me over it. So yeah, I definitely do understand. It's a sad world, a lot of sensitive people. I don't like to use the term snowflake, because generally when I'm in an internet argument with somebody and they call me a snowflake, I automatically deduct 50 IQ points and go from there. Just assume that I'm, talking to an idiot.
All right, snowflake.
I mean,
Jessica, do you have any friends left?
Well, yes. They're not on Facebook.
that's why they're her friends.
I mean, I learned a long time ago that politics is not the place that you make friends. When I first started in the political arena, I really thought that like everyone I met that was nice and wanted to like socialize was a friend. And then an election came around and I was like, okay, guess I learned a valuable lesson, because, you know, there are people who call you a friend until you disagree with them, or, you know, will throw you under the bus the first opportunity they get. And especially being someone who is like so vocal about my opinions, and that's my job, you know, I have found that there are people that you can align yourself with, and, you know, I wish more people would, but I just try to take people not for like at the value of what they offer in terms of agreement, but like, you know when you agree with people and know that it's okay to disagree. I guess that's what's been lost on social media, is that it's not okay to disagree. I mean, Jonathan pointed out that someone was like sharing something was false and they got unfriended. I was recently unfriended because I put on a Facebook excerpt a word that ended in D, ED. I forgot the D.